Join our incredible moms who have mastered the art of balancing motherhood in today's episode of We Time Convo.
My name is Debbie.
This is Liza.
Moms sharing inspiring stories, practical tips, and a few hilarious anecdotes. And it all begins now.
Thanks for tuning in again to We Time Combo. This is Liza and
Debbie.
And today we are going to discuss having young adult children living in your home and how to establish boundaries. And we have two special guests here today. We have a repeat and return guest, Donna.
Hello.
And then we have a brand new guest here. We have Russ. Can I call you Russell?
You can't call me Russell, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us a little more about yourself.
I'm a local guy, grew up and born and raised in San Jose, divorced. I have my adult kids living full time with me right now in Campbell, and I live and work in Campbell.
And your kids are 20 and 23.
20 and 23, yeah. They'll be 21 and 24
Yeah.
in a few months.
He's also in a band. Let's shamelessly plug your band. What is it your band called?
I play guitar and sing in the Uppity Dicks, original rock and roll. So.
Yeah, and they're pretty good.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And Donna, how old are your kids?
Yeah, so I have two daughters. The youngest is 22. She'll be 23 this month. And my oldest is 25. Yes. And there's a total of 4 of us in the house. So, yeah.
You know what? I want
With
to
my husband.
actually start off with an icebreaker here.
But
It's a little game. Yeah.
But before that, I want to know because Russ is a new guest, how do you and Liza know each other?
We work together.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's an
okay.
educator.
Okay.
Yeah, he's in
I
SPED.
figured. I figured that for our listeners,
Yeah.
it would be nice. And then just as a reminder, Donna is my sister.
Yes. Younger.
Yes.
Although most people actually mistake her for being the older one.
Ooh.
So she says.
I'm going to say
So
she
she
says.
Okay,
says.
let's start off with an icebreaker here because I heard this on a podcast as well. And I'm like, hey, let's start with an icebreaker, kind of get to know each other before we get into like conversation, right?
Absolutely.
So burning house,
Yes.
4 things in there. There's only 2 that you get to save. Other 2 is just gone, completely gone.
Okay.
One of them is $20 million.
Okay.
The other one is your pet.
Yes.
The love of your life, pet, dog, cat, hamster, whatever. The third is your mother-in-law or your partner's, parent. And the fourth one is, the love of your life. Like this person is perfect. You never fight. You don't want to kill this person, your husband, girlfriend, whatever. Russ, I'll have you go first. 2 things. 2 of those 4 things.
2 of those things. Well, I'm gonna take my significant other, the love of my life, and I'm gonna take the $20 million, and we're gonna start over.
Your poor pet.
Yeah.
All right.
Why not the pet or
You
your
know,
mother-in-law?
well, mother-in-law is, that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be tough.
But what if your girlfriend, the love of your life, close to your mother-in-law? Because that's the thing. Wouldn't she resent
My
you?
mother-in-law, my girlfriend's mother has long been dead.
Oh.
So like I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to bring her back and find out. Like,
Donna, go ahead.
Yes. I would definitely choose the love of my life, which is my husband, and definitely his mother-in-law. We're very close. Yeah.
Sorry. Well, you know what?
Liza?
You won right there. That's more than $20 million.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even if I didn't choose them, I would hear it forever. Like, why did you not rescue them?
You would divorce anyway. It leads to divorce. Yeah. For me,
Yes.
it's going to be the love of my life because you guys have heard my horror dating stories.
Okay.
If I have the love of my life, I'm latching onto him.
You don't
I'm
wanna
not
lose
letting
him
go.
again.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm not letting him go. The second would be my dog. I just breathe.
How did
my baby.
I know that?
Yeah, my baby. I mean, I've already won there. You know?
Yeah, I knew one of the 2 had to be your pet. That's for sure.
How about you, Debbie?
Okay, so this is a very hard question, but I had to think about. So I thought about it really quickly, and I have logic. So I would save my pet and the $20 million.
Oh,
And-
is Peter going to be listening to this?
Okay, here's the deal. I know my husband so well. He is, if the house is burning, I already know he is figuring out how to get out of there, and he's for sure taking his mom. So I know that with both of us, if the house is burning, we already know what to do without like having to say. So he will for sure figure out a way how to get out, and he's going to take his mother with him. So I don't want to duplicate effort, and I'm going to take the 20 million and the pet, and we'll meet each other outside and we'll be whole again.
Smart.
Yeah. And my logic is the cats that I take care of in my place, he's a feral guy. So he's an outside guy most of the time. So he would be outside. He would be outside waiting for me.
See, my dog would be looking around going, what's going on? So I know for sure he needs saving.
He needs help. Okay.
Yes.
Smart.
And then my logic is we would not keep $20 million in the house.
It would. That would be a surprise.
All right, let's get to it. Russ.
Yeah.
Adult children. Are they both? They're both living at home.
Both living at home. Both have moved in permanently with me recently. So same. They were. Their mom and I have shared custody. And then they had places at both houses, and both of them had the same circumstances. Got in a fight with their mom, were given an ultimatum, and the ultimatum was like, do this or don't do this or get out. And both of them chose to leave and come to my place. Nice. And I was like, wild. So, but I told them, look, I love you. I want you to like have a safe and stable living environment while you go to college. I want you to complete college and not worry about housing. That's ridiculous to me. And as long as I have a place, you have a place. I would rather you stay with me than, struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are the challenges so far now that they're adults?
The challenges are, we have like essentially a 2-bedroom apartment. One of them's living in the dining room, and we have a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom place, and it doesn't clean itself. Like the dishes don't do themselves. The dishes don't put themselves away. The laundry doesn't fold itself. And all of that happens inside of the apartment. So we had some talks about like, I need you both to help.
Yep. I
don't want to tell you what to do. I don't want to make a chore list. I need you to look. I need you to look around and see what needs to be done and do it.
Well, is that part of the adult part, right?
Yeah.
That's the part of the adult part. It's like you're helping because obviously they're your kids.
Yeah.
But there's the adult part that they need to own up to.
Yes.
That it sounds like that's the struggle, because in that particular environment, they're still kind of like your kid. They're your kids.
They absolutely are. And I think they were both receptive to it. And so like I've learned to change tactics with them. They're not like little kids. You don't have to lecture them. Mm-hmm. Like you have to tell them like, who do you think makes all this happen?
Got it. So do you still like they don't get grounded though, right? Like,
no. They are like, we've never like had that kind of household anyway, because they're not like 95% of what's happening. I love, but it's like some other stuff I need to start happening because they're not always necessarily going to live with me. How are you going to be somebody else's roommate, somebody's partner if you can't independently help?
Well, do they both? So they go to school.
Yeah.
But do they also work?
My youngest just lost a job, and so she's looking for a job, but my oldest works. And so my oldest is also commuting to San Francisco State to go to school. But like I go to work too.
Mm-hmm. Now, in regards to them working,
yeah,
right? Do you feel like they need to also contribute to some level from a financial standpoint, or do you?
I haven't asked for that. My oldest is paying their own car insurance, paying for the stuff that they're doing independently. I said, I'm not having you contribute to rent. I'm covered.
So it's just the rent piece. So, but they basically do cover their own, as you mentioned, car insurance.
Yeah, they're covering their own individual pieces like that. I'm helping my youngest because I've been helping my youngest, but that's, she's going to turn 21 and we're going to transition to that. So that's the conversation.
Is she aware of that?
She is aware of that.
Okay.
Yes.
So the 21 is a magic number for you then, in a sense.
Well, I think it's like, if you don't have some skin in the game, why would you care?
Yep. No, that's really true.
100%.
Yep. So Donna, tell us what your situation is.
So our 2 young adults live at home. They haven't left except for one time, maybe like 2 years ago. My youngest was gone for 6 months. So she lived on her own. She was in the Disney College program in Florida. And it was a great experience for her because when she came back, it was like she was a better roommate. You know, like she was more independent. She had her stuff like on her own, like kept it just for herself and would put things away and helped around a lot more in the house.
Before that, did she like do all that stuff at home?
She did, but it was kind of like these are your chores, your assignments at home for both our daughters. And like any rule or any chore that, we figure out or schedule, it works out in the beginning. Then there's, like after, I don't know, like a few months, it's, someone's slacking or things change or And then we just got to go back to like reminding them like, hey, these are the rules on the chores again. My oldest, she has not left. She lives very comfortably at home. Actually, they both do. It's a similar situation where we don't pay for any of their recreational stuff. They're eating out, hanging out with friends, gas money. They started paying for their insurance. They also started paying for their cell phone bills, but it's not consistent yet. Yeah. And they do contribute around the house. They'll buy food. They'll buy, actually, they buy pretty much anything that they want, and then they'll share it with us.
Do they work?
Yeah. So they both do work, and my husband works. Currently, I'm the only one that's not working and I'm looking for a job. Right. And it's at the point where I'm like, I need to work because everyone is working and they're like, hey, mom, like, what are you doing at home? So that's partly the reason why I want to get a job because I want to contribute, everyone else. We also have pets. So that's like another thing that adds to the living situation. I think for the most part, we live comfortably. We have a 4-bedroom home. So everyone
has their own space.
Has their own space. Yeah. And then we have an extra room, which, we use for whatever. And we have 2 living rooms. So
she has a big enough space where they're not running into each other.
Yeah,
so if you're like in a mood, right?
Yes.
If you're in a mood, you can just go into your room, close the door, and people are just more conscious, like, okay, you're just not in the mood. And you're probably not in the mood to deal with that either.
And poor Russ has 2.
Right.
2 of them.
Yes. And then we have 2 full bathrooms. So that is like a big deal for me too.
Because I think if you don't it's even more challenging when you're like in a tight space, right? Yeah. For sure.
Definitely. Yes.
But I do have to say, it's a comfortable situation. I sometimes remind her, if I and they're smart to know that being on your own may have all these great benefits, but obviously the downside is you got to pay for that.
I wasn't that smart.
Right. And they're smart enough that they just know that I would rather keep that money to enjoy, as she mentioned, their luxuries. And then they're able to manage the challenges of living at home.
My young adult child, she was smart. So Haley, she's going to be 24 in June. As soon as she turned 18. And she wasn't very she was very iffy about what she wanted to do after she graduated. She's like, I don't know. Right. So as soon as she turned 18, I was like, look, you're going to do one of 2 things or both. You are either going to have a job, work full time, or you're going to go to community college, and you're going to contribute to this household. You're an adult now. Yeah. Right. She didn't like that. She found out her grandma gonna move to Nevada, to Vegas. Her grandma's like, hey, you're 18, come live with me. You don't have to pay rent. You don't have to do anything. She just up and left. I mean, I was very sad about it, but I think about
figured it out, right?
I think about if I was at her age, I wouldn't want to stay home either.
Right. Yeah. Well, so my mom, she has her own place, and she always welcomed my girls, just move in with me. But my girls never wanted to leave for whatever reason. They really love being at home.
Well, I think part of it too is their grandma has a tendency. She has her tendencies as well. And I think part of it is it's their grandma. So they can't be as, challenging to her. because they love their grandma so much. But, you know, when you come to your parents, I think there's the dynamic of like, well, I'm your kid. You're going to have to deal with this anyways, right? Yeah. Like, so I think that's one of the reasons, because they were kind of in a very similar situation that Haley has, opportunity, which is you can come live with me for free, and, you know, she would love it.
Yeah, what I always hear though with my mom, if they moved in with my mom, they wouldn't want to stay with her because they know that she has like they'll have a curfew. And so they know rules. Their grandma. Yeah, so there's certain rules, but then I'm like, we have the same rules too.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
though, is that they don't want to like put
burden my mom in that situation. They're okay. Like, oh, I rather give that to my parents, like the headache to my parents. But my mom has a bigger home, and she cooks all the time, and they would never have to clean. So you know, I don't know why the trade-offs, like how they came to that conclusion. Like, no, it's better to be at moms and dads.
You're lucky. That just means they love you. My daughter.
I don't know. Like sometimes I do think that, but then sometimes I'm kind of like, it would be so much better living at grandma's house. Like I don't understand.
I really think it's
logic.
They don't want to burden my mom with the, you know, because sometimes they do a little bit of nonsense, right? And so they don't want to burden her because, like, again, they love her so much, and they don't want to put that stress on her. So.
Oh, it's funny that you say that. My youngest has recently moved in, and my sister has, both my sisters live locally. One has a big house where it's just her husband, and some animals. And my sister said, like, you know, she could stay with me. She could have her own suite on a whole side of the house. And I told my youngest, like, you know, you could go live with your auntie. And she was like, oh, I didn't think of that. And it's like, on the one hand, like, yeah, there's a trade-off, but there is no free living anywhere.
That's true.
That's right.
You got to give something in exchange for your housing.
Yes.
And it may be like a different relationship. Like she knows that, like I've noticed that there's stuff that she still needs some training on making it all the way into adulthood.
Yeah. Well, so
like, that's my job. That's not my sister's job. And I don't want that to not get done.
Yes. So do you guys ever feel, because obviously they're out of high school, do you ever feel like, you know what, we can continue this for indefinite, or is there kind of a stopping point, whether it's age or you know, from a time perspective, do you go, okay, I got to draw the line and you guys got to go?
Personally, I've lived with my parents off and on multiple times in my life, and they have kicked me out multiple times. So I'm a line crosser, a boundary breaker. And when I do, I've been evicted multiple times, and that's fine.
He wasn't juvie.
So I'm a knucklehead. My kids are not knuckleheads, so I can't imagine them behaving in a way that makes me say, like, you can't be here anymore. Like whatever's happening with them is like not the same as, like, they're not malicious or even knuckleheady. They're just developing.
Well,
they're just young adults, and they don't have all the information, and they also like have led sheltered lives, and I love that for them, but that's not how it is.
Well, the reason why I bring this up is because there's a perspective that you're enabling them to kind of be in a situation where they're not going to be independent. Right. Like you have people who go, like, my parents were really clear, like at the age of 18, or once I was you know, if I didn't meet these steps, I was basically on my own, which caused them to obviously be independent. So there's like this perspective that you're enabling them maybe to be dependent on you guys.
I think for my husband and I, we could be enabling them, but we do know the situation is different. Like in like today's time, where it really is a lot more expensive living somewhere,
especially in the Bay Area.
Yeah, in the Bay Area. And then so if they were to move away, you know, like we would understand that because it's cheaper somewhere else, like for just to live somewhere else. But then that's where there's a give and take on our side. I'm like, do I really want my child like far from me? I'm okay having them at home with us and like, just be with us. So there's trade-offs for us too, where we don't like feel it's necessary. Like, oh, you guys need to get out of the house. But we've had discussions where it's like, I think the time for you guys to really move out of the house is if you start your own family. You know, like we can't have like another adult living with us, and then a younger baby, right, in the house, then it gets a little too crowded. And that's where we feel like that's where you should be more independent and on your own. But you never know in that situation, right? They might need help as well, right? So it seems like they're in agreement with that, but you just never know if it turns out that way.
And you might fall in love with that grandbaby and be like, you know what? You're not
Right.
my mom,
right.
like my mom's with me, so she just fell in love with my kids.
Yes.
She used to say that all the time. Like,
Once you're done,
I'm not raising
yeah.
your
kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So boundaries. Let's talk
Yes.
boundaries and rules. Donna, what are your rules and boundaries with your
Oh, my
adult children?
So boundaries, I would say, I don't know. So I've had my kids at a younger age. I basically grew up with them too. So we're kind of like sisters, right? I had them when I was 22. Like, so at 22, I had my oldest, and then we're very close. We like the same stuff, like as far as clothes and all that. So we definitely like share things, but there are some specific things that's like, no, do not touch this. Like stay out of, like I have medicine cabinet that I put my beauty products. I have a sign there. It says, Alexis, do not touch this.
And they're not cheap either.
Yes. And it took a while. And now she never goes through it because now she's older and she buys her own stuff. But before it was like, you know, like, do not touch my stuff. Or if you do, please put it back. And it was very hard. And then Ayana, on the other hand, she's different. It's really weird because they grew up in the same home with the same parents, but they're two different people. Mm-hmm. And Ayana, she has her own stuff. Like she will never touch your stuff. So, you know, she's actually like, she's really good on boundaries. My oldest,
and she likes her own boundaries too.
Yes, so she likes her own boundaries.
She's very clear on like her boundaries. I respect your boundaries. Please respect mine.
Yeah, I think part of it though is because she did live on her own 6 months, and she living on her own. She also had roommates. Yeah. And then my oldest, she's only lived with us, right? So we're her roommates, and she's like, oh, these are the best roommates ever, right? So yeah.
Got them trained up. Got them all trained up.
Right. And then, you know, we tried the whole like rules thing, like come home early, don't bring people like over late at night, and, you know, be quiet at a certain time. And, you know, it took some time. My husband works in the evenings now, so he needs to sleep during the day. So I feel like my kids are a lot more mature. They're like, oh, dad's asleep. Let's, you know, let's be quiet. And, you know, and they know how to live with us now. Yeah. So, yeah.
How about you, Russ?
You know, it's interesting that you were talking about how the youngest is clear about the boundaries that she wants. And so, you know, my oldest moved, and my oldest went to college the COVID year. She lived at St. Mary's. Close enough to get to, but far enough away to be away at college. Right. So she had a roommate and like had that experience. Who has a little more experience like in a living with others situation. Right. So my oldest was much more amenable to the, you know, I'm like, you know, in my apartment, there's a washer and a dryer. Like the clothes don't magically go from one to the other. You actually have to take them out and put them in and then like turn the dryer on. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, when you come in, like, I don't mind getting laundry. You know, I'll have a partial load. You'll have a partial. Let's make a one load. Yep. Do it. And then just put it in the dryer. And then you take it out and you can throw it on the couch or whatever so we can do laundry. But use your eyes, look around, see what needs to be done, and go ahead and just help. Like if it's my stuff, you can go ahead and fold it. You don't have to put it in my room, but fold my clothes. I'll fold yours too. I promise. Like we'll work together. It's a community. Yes. And they're like, oh yeah. It's like you kind of gotta.
But don't they go like, but I'm busy. Like I'm running around. Like
they would never say something so audacious like that, because that would sound crazy. Given I'm working full time and making it happen, like, you know, like what I said to him was like, I'm doing stuff here too. I'm mostly doing the cooking, and I also clean up after myself. Maybe I don't do it right then, but we have a small place, so you kind of have to do the dishes before you can cook. So I'm like, just help, do something. I want to see that you're paying attention, that we're living together, and this matters to you too. Like, I vacuum, I mop, like you can do that. Like, you know, I don't want to assign chores because that feels awkward, but I want you to like come home and do something here too.
And how long have you guys been living together?
I've had partial custody since they were like little kids, and but recently, in the last month, now I have both of them living with me full.
So you're still figuring.
So we're still working, and so like my youngest, her bedroom is in the dining room, and so I've said like we're gonna make some changes this summer. I'm gonna put you both in rooms that have doors. I don't need this. I don't have the same life going on as a 50-year-old with, my girlfriend has a place I could go to. So, I don't need a closed bedroom. So we're going to rearrange rooms and make sure that you have like private spaces, your 20-year-olds. And so, but we've talked about the same kind of stuff. I've never really been that that harsh about coming home. What I care about is that you communicate with me. Tell me what you're going to do. And don't BS me. Just tell me the truth. I'd rather you be honest. Like, you're not going to hurt my feelings. When I was your age, I was doing much dumber stuff than I see you do. And I tell them, I say, I appreciate the way you're living. And but you have a right to make decisions. Just keep me in the loop. You don't have to, I don't expect you to even come home. Just tell me you're not coming home. Like, just be safe, communicate with me, let me know what you need and that kind of stuff. And so just kind of keeping and making it a dialogue, not you're going to do this, but like,
these are my rules.
So that doesn't work with them. And my youngest, I've noticed, like when I say, hey, I need you to do this or that, like and then she'll come back with, hey, I kind of need this from you too. And I was like, she's not afraid to have a dialogue with me. And I appreciate that. Like,
but aren't you afraid though, like, again, being devil's advocate in these situations? Because there's a group of people, parents, that would be like, yeah, but at what point do you feel like they're going to start taking advantage of that flexibility, right? Like, or do you feel like you've instilled enough in them that they wouldn't do that? Or because, just like any maybe natural tendency is like, oh, it's pretty flexible. I'm flexible. And at some point you might at moments feel taken advantage of. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think like as long as I got to remind myself that a boundary is a negotiated thing. And when it needs to change, then you got to negotiate that. You have to talk to somebody and say like, hey, it doesn't feel like it's working, but a boundary's got to be flexible enough that it can move. Mm-hmm. My youngest lost her job, that the owner sold the company for the place that she was working.
It was out of her control.
Mm-hmm. But like, she's been kind of sad and not really looking for work. And I'm like, hon, no one's going to find you here.
Yes.
You actually have to get going. You're going to have to apply.
Guide her.
You're going to have to apply for jobs. No one's going to find you if you don't send your resume out. Yes. Like, it's a process. So, but it's like, I also don't want, and we're going to Hawaii, this summer. And like she said, I'm going to get some money together, which she's not really got money coming in. And so it's like and so we had to have that talk too. I said, we're going to Hawaii and we're going to have a good time and we're going to spend whatever we need to spend to like have fun. I'm not going to worry about that, but I am worried that I'm the only one paying.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm going to worry a little bit up to, and I'm going to worry a little bit afterwards about how we afford it. But I'm not going to worry when we get there because we're going to be on vacation. I just want you to know that we're not going to not go. We're not going to not do stuff, but it's scary.
Right. Yeah. I do want to say, when you're talking about dialogue, right? So our kids were younger at 18, but you are right. You're correct. Because I think what we tried to do with our daughters was like set these rules and boundaries. Like, hey, you need to come home at a certain time. And then they do get older.
Yeah.
And, you really can't set certain curfews on like 20-year-olds, right?
No.
And
No.
And so I think my daughters taught us that.
Yes.
Like, no, Mom, I was living in Florida. I was gone for 6 months. I was like out and about at night. You didn't tell me what time I had to be home. So now that I moved back, why are you telling me to come home at a certain time? So that's my youngest. And then my oldest, she was just very open. She would just tell me, I'm here, I'm there. You have my location. I'll text you whenever. And she's a very good communicator. So it's already like after so many years trying to like lay down these rules, it's like, oh yeah, like, you know, like, so for example, she went out last night and it's like, what time are you going to be home? And then I'll wake up in the middle of the night. Are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. And I just go back to sleep and, you know, that's it. Right. So then I'm fine. So because really, we just want them home to be safe. And then to make me feel better. Right.
That's what, you know, from arguing about why aren't you here and like having the curfew struggles. And that was always like a struggle with my own parents with me. Yes. And I would do some knucklehead stuff. Like late is late. That's what my parents said. 5 minutes late is late. And so I would just come home the next morning.
Right.
Be like, late is late, Mom. Late is late. 6 a.m. This is late, just like 11
and then no phones back then, right?
No phones. And so I don't want my kids to treat me that way. And I was like, what I want is you to be safe. You don't have to be safe here. Just communicate with me because I'm a parent. I'm going to worry.
Yes. Yeah. So that's, I think my girls understand that because they know I worry because they know my mom worries. I think they know their dad worries. But I think that's why they communicate back with me and they just tell me like everything. I'm here, I'm with this person, you know, and then I'm like, okay, like I'm so used to it now. It's like, okay, because I know they come back home.
Same.
So I'm okay with it now.
And it's different when they live out from the home. Like, I don't know what Haley's doing.
Yeah, you can't control anything.
Living under your roof, it's like out of sight, out of mind, right? Like,
exactly.
You just don't feel like your house is whole until they come home.
But that's what I'm saying is I think, you know, kids that live at home at this adult age realize like it's a trade-off, right? Like they're figuring it out too. And it's a trade-off of like, okay, I still want my freedom. How am I going to get that living at a home? And then it, like you said, it's a process. I have one that's 17 and I'm like, it's an effort to make sure she stays on like a curfew, you know, it really is. And she's like less than a year away from being 18. Mm-hmm. She lives at home, but there's no real magic number because as they continue every year, it gets harder and harder to get them, you know, like with a curfew. Yeah. But to me, I definitely see that.
Yeah, I do want to say that, like as you talk about your experience and then my experience, I do want to add like another thing that can be a little different between us. I have another parent that lives at home. So when we have to see eye to eye too, and we usually don't see eye to eye.
My mom lives with me, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's it's a struggle though, because then we're trying to parent both our kids and we don't agree all the time. And it's very challenging. But when we are on the same page, I'm like, but
they can't mess around when they're on the same page. And that's again, back to the kids. They know that each parent kind of has their own perspective of something. And trust me, they will use that.
Well, I mean, I think the kids are acutely aware that things are different. Like they had two houses. Yep. My kids had two houses that they lived in for a long time. And so things are different at both houses. And, while we were co-parenting, we're divorced for a reason. Let me just say that. Let me just say that. And that's fine. But so there would be like, they'd be upset about what's happening there or, have trouble at my place and this and that. And so like but what they learned was two different places, two different slightly rules, two people that love them in different ways. There's not some right or wrong about it. There's just difference about it. And like everybody's doing the best they can. And how are you going to learn that the world is not fair if things aren't different? Other places like this is like no one's getting everything they want all the time. Like we're trying to give you what you need right now to help you through this. And that may be more time, that may be more financial stuff, maybe whatever. Like we're trying to support you with what you need in real time and not support you with what you don't need so you can become independent. And we're getting it wrong so much of the time. Like I'm making so many mistakes, but but it's like we keep trying. We don't give up.
So gone is the days of once you hit 18, you're out of the house.
I think for us, I don't know, in other states maybe.
What job could you have that you could live independently in this town?
No, but that's what I'm saying, right? Because in growing up, you're thinking like once they're 18, they're out of here. Like, but realistically, that really doesn't make sense.
No. Unless
Yeah.
they go away to college somewhere.
Yeah.
But then they come back after
Yeah.
college, right after their
always come back.
semester.
Like
after
a
their
boomerang.
semester. Yeah, a boomerang, exactly. I'm actually thinking too, if I have any friends where their kids just left and were on their own.
I think it depends on the relationship
Yes.
with their parents as well.
Yeah.
Right? They just didn't have a relationship with their parents.
That's
and
true.
Just wanted to up and leave.
Oh, and
Yeah.
it's just like it's really painful to just stay. So they're just
Well, my girlfriend, her adult son, and his daughter, and his daughter's mom live at her place.
Oh, wow.
So I mean that's a lot, but you know she loves her son and loves her granddaughter, and that, you know, so that's like happening too.
Yep.
But you know, like I think my oldest is 23, and I play in a band. I love music. I love to go see bands, and my oldest loves to see bands too. And that kid grew up listening to music in my car, so I know that they like good music because I raised them right. And so they like the same kind of bands that I
Yes.
like, and so we've been hanging out like a lot. And I get to spend time with like one of my favorite people in the whole world. Like
Yes.
this is like one of the coolest people I've ever met.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the beauty of like having your adult kids at.
You can adult together.
Yeah, you can.
I
Right.
love,
Right.
I love it.
Because can you imagine if they're gone? You don't have those moments with them, right? Like you wouldn't. Like I'm sure, like as you mentioned, you and your mom live together.
Yeah.
I know it's probably challenging, but you probably really love it because you know that there's something to be said about being around your parent, especially when you know they're getting older and like you know those moments aren't gonna like you know hopefully they last, but at some point you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I went to go
Right?
see Haley when I went to Vegas.
Yeah.
We were drinking together, you know, and I'm like, you know, we were talking about adult things. She was asking me about my dating life and this, and then it was just like, I had a new friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when my youngest was in Florida, like it was like visiting my friend.
Yeah.
You know, and I would hang out with her, and then I would go visit her, of course, and then she would like take me around like the city in Orlando, right? And I'm like, oh wow, there's a lot of things to do here. And then as far as like moving out of my parents, I still have the luxury of visiting my mom, you know, and seeing her at close by. She's like 5 minutes away from my house. So I'm thinking my kids, if they ever move out, like I think, you know, hopefully we would have that opportunity to still be close. But I'm actually okay if like we're not crowded at home, you know, it's fine. But I think if we had another kid there, I think that would be a little too much. Yeah. Somebody would have to move out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But going back to setting boundaries, I guess from what I'm hearing from you guys is it's not really boundaries because I think now they're in an adult state. So it's really just kind of being able to, like, as you mentioned, it's a community, right? You have a community with your kids. There's a level of, you know, respect of living in a community. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you guys in your guys' situation. It's not really a boundary because I think, as you mentioned, you try to make boundaries, but that didn't
When they were
really work.
younger, yeah.
that
And then
didn't
as
work.
they got older, it just didn't make sense to.
Yeah, it changes, and like
Right.
you know, what I've noticed is like I'm learning stuff too.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
I'm not the only one saying I need this, that, and the other thing. I'm also getting a lot of feedback like, oh, and we're going to need this from you. And it's
Right.
like, oh, I wasn't thinking I was going to have to give stuff. I thought I was giving commands wrong.
Yes. And when you're saying learning, like I'm learning because times have changed. So I feel like I'm learning a lot about like today's times, like for their generation, how they're telling, like, you know, even when it comes to music, right? Like something like music or like terms and like what people do nowadays. Like I'm learning from them, like, oh, is that what's happening right now?
Yeah.
You know, and they like, I can appreciate that too, because I feel like I'm learning from them. They're learning from me. And if they're not learning from me yet, they will learn from me, you know, at some point when they get older. Yeah. And they're going to be like, oh, mom said this. So, you know, like, so Alexis is a lot of her friends. They can't move out because they're actually, they're helping their parents. So they need each other.
Oh.
So it's a little different where our kids need us,
Yeah.
but their parents need her friends to help pay for
Yeah.
So that's another like different situation.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, I could move. Like they could move out.
Yeah.
But then they can't because they.
Or if your parent is sick,
Yeah.
and need care.
But it's a time where they could move out and live independently, but they choose not to because they are helping their mom with rent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is super expensive here.
Yeah, which is different.
Which is a different dynamic because I think when you just mentioned like, hey, my kid lives with me, I think, like I said, there's a negative connotation that comes into that, and it's if you really like peel that onion, that's not necessarily the case. Maybe it was way back when, but our times are different now.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, there's situations where a parent might actually need the kid.
Yeah.
Right, because I would hear situations like, oh, I can't go out because I need to work, and like there's issues at home, and then I'm always like, well, have them move out, and then they're not moving out because they need help their parent and their other siblings, and I'm just like, wow, I would just leave. I would just leave. Exactly, but they're actually staying, And,
I see how it is with you.
But yeah, and then I'm just so that's when I tell my kids like, wow, you have really good friends, like they're there being responsible, taking care of their mom.
Well, the parents did something right then. They want to stick around.
Yes.
And help
Yeah.
their parents out. But
Yeah.
So I think it's a nice trade-off sometimes. Yeah.
for sure.
No, well, thank you guys for sharing.
Yeah.
Because, I think for our listeners, that's a really different perspective of how you guys are living with your adult children.
I am curious though how other places do it, like out of state. Like I know there has to be like, I don't know,
Like the culture.
like they just know to move out already, at 18.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah.
Well,
It's probably less common.
a lot of people, actually, my understanding is if you're 18, you want to move out, the situation most kids go through is they go into the military.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Russ.
That's how I got it.
Oh, is that how you got it?
Right?
Okay.
Like that was at 18, there's not much of a choice, but then military will take care of everything.
Yeah,
Yes.
probably
Have to give it
military.
up.
Yeah.
They pick your roommates for you.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Yeah. And then like in the Asian culture too, it's like you really don't even when your kid turns 18, you're just you don't even really think about kicking them out.
We don't really think about kicking out at 18.
Yeah.
The families and everything.
I do know, obviously, in certain cultures that, tends to, like, that's weird.
Or they always want well in Asian culture too, like they always want the son because the son takes care of the mom. That's just a thing. Like you have to stay and take care of your mom, regardless if she's older or not. But there are some cultures where it's like you're 18,
Right.
get the hell out of my
Yes.
house. You know.
No,
Yeah.
very true. Very true. But
Yeah.
interested. Great topic.
Well, I think that's all we have for today. Thank you so much, Russ
Thank
and
you.
Donna,
Thank
for
you,
coming
guys.
on,
Thank you.
talking about your adult children.
Yes.
Actually, it opens my eyes a little bit to realize that, just my takeaway on this is that, gone is the days of kicking your kids, especially where we live.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
It's not
absolutely.
realistic. It's too expensive. What do you expect them to do or to have? And then I think just talking about it, it's just highlighting there's benefits of your kids actually living with you. It's not all like, I think there's always kind of a negative connotation when you have adult kids living with you that like, oh, you're hindering them from growing or being independent from what I'm hearing, that's really, maybe that does happen, but in most cases, if you're teaching them right as they grow, it's something else. It's more positive than that kind of negative aspect.
Right.
I don't know, but I mean that's my takeaway.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and thanks again to our guest for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, guys.
Thank you,
Thanks, you guys.